1823. My dear William, I hear by your father that you will return in a few days to Bristol. Be assured you will take with you my best wishes and affections. I am happy to certify that no boy could behave better than you did during your stay with me at the Chantry. Pursue this line of good conduct, and you will be happy yourself. Make your father and everyone who loves you happy too. Your affectionate uncle, E.J.
So felt the towering soul of Montague, her sex's glory and her country's too, who gave the spotted plague one deadly blow, and bade its
He was dining with a party at Bath when a question arose whether the temperature was highest in the centre of a candle flame or at some small distance from its apex. Jenner, with his usual ingenuity and readiness, soon settled the dispute. He placed the candle before him and sought to...
Not the greatest painting. Must have had some sentimental value.
So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord, and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot unto his crown. Then said his friends unto him, Know that God exacteth of thee less than thine iniquity deserveth. And Job answered and said, My flesh is clothed with worms and clods of dust. My skin is broken and become loathsome. But ye are forgers of lies. Ye are all physicians of no value.
What? Where am I? This place is familiar. Not been here for years. There's something written on the door. Let's try the door handle. Difficult to see, but I think that's the breakfast room. Can't see anything inside. I think it's a false window. Something to do with symmetry. I'm not climbing through no windows. I'm in enough trouble already. I don't like locked doors. I need to remember who lived here. My memory's still a bit hazy.
Oh, I am most wretched when alone, as every surrounding object reminds me of my irreparable loss. But no place on earth would at present suit me but my Berkeley home, and I trust my friends will not endeavour to take me away, for the bitter cup has a kind of relish in it here, which it could afford nowhere else.
I remember now. This was the home of that doctor. He was quite notorious in his day. I'll be soused. It's like being there all those years ago. The Berkeley family crest. Not much use at the moment. The Berkeley family crest. Not much use at the moment. This painting don't belong here. I'd remember an expensive piece like theirs. It would look more at home inside Berkeley Castle. This painting don't belong here. I'd remember an expensive piece like this. It would look more at home inside Berkeley Castle. That letter was written the day before he died. Bit spooky. That letter was written the day before he died. Bit spooky. A map of the county. Might be useful later. It's inscribed with the name Watley Montague. I've heard that name before somewhere. Now I don't remember there being a Turkish lantern clock in the old way. This was a doctor's country home. He had a townhouse somewhere in these parts too. Can't remember where, but it'll come back to me. What have we got here?
24th of January, 1823. My dear William, I hear by your father that you will return in a few days to Bristol. Be assured you will take with you my best wishes and affections. I am happy to certify that no boy could behave better than you did during your stay with me at the Chantry. Pursue this line of good conduct.
The River Severn cuts through the English county of Gloucestershire, leaving Bristol in the south with Gloucester. The Vale of Berkeley lies on the south bank of the river, between the two cities. I remember now. His second home was in Cheltenham, Gloucester way. Fine townhouse it was too. This was a breakfast room. I always imagined this was a centre of family life in the doctor. By all accounts, the doctor didn't travel much, but he had correspondents from all around the world. He's a big fella, isn't he?
The condition of a servant would be too severe were they not allowed some time which they may call their own. In all well-governed families, a maid servant has the liberty every Sunday, or every other Sunday, of going to church. If she neglects it, it discovers she has little sense of true religion, and may well be suspected of failing in her duty to an earthly master and mistress, when she fails in that to her Maker.
Respectable families expect their pound of flesh from domestic servants. The lady of the house had good taste in furniture. A painting by the doctor's nephew, Stephen. Another cupboard. I'll have to try a different way. Small cupboard, but probably bigger than my cell.
The condition of a servant would be too severe were they not allowed some time which they may call their own. In all well-governed families, a maid servant has the liberty every Sunday, or every other Sunday, of going to church. If she neglects it, it discovers she has little sense of true religion, and may well be suspected of failing in her duty to an earthly master.
It was the most terrible of the ministers of death, always present, filling the churchyard with corpses, tormenting with constant fears all whom it had not yet stricken.
Thus our hero, being plundered of his estate and bereaved of his children, says, "Naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord hath taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord."
Beethoven and Mozart survived the smallpox with just a few scars, but many that survived it ended up blind as well.
At length the infection spread to the palace and reached the young and blooming queen. She received the intimation of her danger with true greatness of soul. She gave orders that every servant who had not had the smallpox should instantly leave Kensington House, and then calmly awaited her fate.
Let me check this over. 6 children from the same family lost to the smallpox. Not every family was as unlucky as these poor souls, but 1 in 5 of those who caught it wouldn't live to tell the tale. Every object tells a story.
It left hideous traces of its power on those whose lives it spared. turning the babe into a changeling, at which the mother shuddered, and making the eyes and cheeks of the big-hearted maiden objects of horror to the lover.
Unfortunately, not everyone who survived the smallpox could live with the terrible scars it left behind. Sadly, some even took their own lives. Let's take a close.
Were your interviews for a new housemaid fruitful, Mrs. Knight?
Yes, madam. Both girls were hard-working and from respectable families, but only the Jones girl has had the pox, and plenty of scars to prove it.
Then you must select her. I will not risk the health of my family.
Pox scarring could often be a path into service. If you were lucky enough to survive the speckled monster, then you couldn't catch it again. Smallpox was a cruel, hideous disease. It's no wonder they call it the Angel of Death. Something's changed. I'm sure those stairs were blocked a minute ago. This is where the doctor carried out his curious studies. I dread to think what kind of experiments he used to get up to in here.
This also gives us to consider that diseases are not only judiciously inflicted for past offences, but graciously also designed to prevent future. A little recollection will tell a man whether he has not often been kept virtuous through fear of the consequences, even when inclination has gotten the better of his duty.
His eldest son had a feeble constitution and other infirmities which rendered it inexpedient to send him to a public school. A domestic tutor was procured who was little older than his pupil, but though tender in years, he was old in wisdom and knowledge.
That's just a cupboard. There's no way through here. Nice landscape. Nice landscape.
Selected poems by the late John Dawes Worgan of Bristol, who died on the 25th of July 1809, aged 19 years.
So the young tutor died of consumption the year before the doctor's son.
I feel greatly obliged to everyone who attempts to console me in my present affliction. But you, who know so much of the human mind, are convinced how vain are these friendly efforts. I had no conception till it happened that the gash would have been so deep, but God's will be done.
He was lying in the last stage of pulmonary consumption. He had repeated hemorrhages from the lungs, and was then evidently approaching his end. I was introduced into the sick room, and there for the first time I saw Mrs. Jenner, the anxious and constant attendant of her dying child.
The doctor's eldest son died of consumption in 1810, at the age of just 21.
He met with many discouragements, his notions having been treated with scorn and ridicule by some, and with indifference by almost all.
There was plenty of paperwork in the dining room I could look through.
condition of a servant would be too severe were they not allowed some time which they may call their own. In all well-governed families, a maid servant has the liberty every Sunday, or every other Sunday, of going to church. If she
They call this place Chantry Cottage. I don't remember why, but there's been grand buildings round here for centuries.
It was called the Chantry, from having in former times been in the possession of certain monks. It is contiguous to the churchyard of Berkeley Castle, and the tower of St. Mary's Church overhangs the southern boundary of the shrubbery.
The doctor had a lot of paintings, but I never figured out who all the artists were. That's the doctor. His eyes follow you round the room. That's a wine cooler, and he had an impressive collection of wines in his cellar too. I wouldn't have left things this untidy. I still had my professional pride back then. That portable desk came with me on all my jobs. Can't believe that miserly pawnbroker only gave me $1 for it. This deserves closer inspection.
There nibbling at thistles stand Jim, Joe and Mary. On their foreheads, oh horrible, crumpled horns bud. Their Tom with a tail and poor William all hairy, reclined in a corner, are chewing the cud.
It looks like a genuine work by Bassan. It's been damaged at one point, but preserved with great care. There's something special about this.
So your book is out at last. Well, I can tell you that there bean't a copy sold in our town, nor shan't neither, if I can help it.
Let me check this over.
I have entrusted a most important matter to you, which I firmly believe will prove of essential benefit to the human race. I should not wish what I have stated to be brought into conversation, for should anything untoward happen, I should be made, particularly by my medical brethren, the subject of ridicule, for I am the mark they all shoot at.
He must have believed in something to have resisted so much scorn. Every object tells a story.
On Thursday last at 2 o'clock, a balloon was launched from the inner court of Berkeley Castle, which rose to a very great height and was visible for a quarter of an hour. The same afternoon, it was seen to descend in a field in the parish of Kingscote, about 10 miles from Berkeley. The locals were so much terrified that they could not for some time be prevailed upon to approach it.
Let's take a closer look.
A small quantity of the serum of human blood was poured over about a square foot of grass. 3 sprinklings were given at the distance of a fortnight each, amounting to the serum contained in 40 ounces of blood. The effects it has produced on the vegetation of the grass is astonishing. It is beautifully green and thick and has sprung up several inches, while the surrounding grass has but just begun to shoot and looks of a yellowish green.
This was the doctor's dressing room. Looks more like a laboratory. An unfortunate cuckoo, apparently. A paper about cuckoos. Not useful right now. William and Mary. She's the queen that died of smallpox. William and Mary. She's the queen that died of smallpox.
The doctor's previous education nor his habits gave him a relish of any of the branches of pure science. He seemed to have a peculiar horror of arithmetical questions, and he exclaimed that he would rather look for an hour at a mite through a microscope than have his time taken up with such things.
I selected a healthy boy, about 8 years old, for the purpose of inoculation for the cowpox. The matter was taken from a sore on the hand of a dairymaid who was infected by her master's cows. It was inserted on the 14th of May, 1796, into the arm of the boy by means of 2 superficial incisions, barely penetrating the cutis, each about half an inch long.
This deserves closer inspection.
I opened the thorax of a dog between 2 ribs and introduced the thermometer. Then I put some lint into the wound to keep it from healing, so that the thorax might inflame. But before I had time to try it again from the hurry of business, my dog died. If these experiments will amuse you, I should be glad that they were made. But take care you do not break your thermometer in the dog's chest. John Hunter.
Never seen one of them before. It's got a face like a timepiece.
Smoking, I am sure, is harmless if used in moderation. A man who has a pipe at his command always has a soothing...
I can't afford to smoke no more, but I reckon I feel better for stopping. The doctor's library. Dr. Edward Jenner, that was his name.